Okay, thank you everybody for being here. Good afternoon, good morning. On behalf of the explorers of the International Federation for Public History, I welcome everybody who is here. My name is Jimena Perry. I am the project manager for Explorers, and today we are very happy and delighted to have two very special guests who will talk about their project, Use and Reuse of Digital Historical Newspapers, the NewsEye project in practice. We have with us Eva Vanselter, who is an associate professor and the deputy head of the Institute of Contemporary History, as well as the deputy head of the Research Center for Digital Humanities at the University of Innsbruck in Austria. Her fields of teaching and research include European and regional contemporary history, Holocaust studies, memory and politics of memory, migration, and digital humanities. She has published widely about Holocaust history and memory and its digital implications. Her current book called, I'm sorry, I'm reading the German and I don't know German, so her current book called Digital Holocaust, Very Viral Negotiations of the Genocide Between Public History, Politics of Memory and Commerce, appeared, published in spring of 2021. If you are interested in more information about her book, I can put the link in the chat. And we also have with us Sarah Obelbichler, who is a postdoctoral researcher at the Institute of Contemporary History at the University of Innsbruck, Austria. She received her PhD in Contemporary History in Innsbruck in 2019 and is currently working on projects for the analysis and visualization of digital newspapers and digital archives. Her research interests are European and regional contemporary history, migration history, media and discourse, and digital humanities. Her current book, Autochthonous Minorities and Migrants, Media Argumentation Strategies from 1990 to 2015, using the example of South Tyrol, was published in December 2020. I will please ask the audience to keep their mics mute during the presentation and talks of our presenters. And if you have comments or questions, you can please use the chat. When the time comes, I will read your questions and comments to our presenters. And thank you for being here again. Eva and Sarah, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Jimena. Thank you for having us here.
Thank you.
Yes, Jimena, could you please share the slides as we agreed before? Sarah and I agreed on more or less having common slides, and we will just introduce you briefly to our project that is actually in its final phase. It's a European Horizon 2020 project, and we've been working together here with colleagues from libraries, also from computer science departments, trying to investigate the digital historical collections more deeply. Jimena, please the second slide.
Oh.
I'm sure you're all aware, or most of you are aware, most of you who work with historical material are aware that we have a lot of newspaper interfaces, digital newspaper interfaces that we can access, where we can access digitized material over libraries, over collection hosts, and so on. So mostly we have newspaper collections that come from libraries. Here, of course, all of you probably know Trove, the Australian portal, or also the one from the Library of Congress, where we have huge collections of digitized historical newspaper material that we can access and look into. In the NewsEye project, we've been working mainly with three libraries. So that's the National Library of Finland with their two portals. One is for professional users, so to say. They are called DigiCorp, and one is for general public. Then we have been working with the one here that you can see here on the left-hand side with Anno. That's the newspaper access page interface from the Austrian National Library in Vienna. And also, of course, we have been working with the National Library of France, the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, with their newspaper portals or their front page pages, so to say, where we can access historical material. Here is one on the right-hand side, Gallica. Now, before I go into the details, the next page, please, Jimena. So what have we been doing in the NewsEye project? We've done mainly a couple of things as a digital humanities group. So as people coming from the humanities and working together with colleagues from the National Library and with colleagues from the computer science departments. So one of our main tasks were to find out if the tools and methods that were generated by our colleagues and offered via the user interfaces do actually help us as humanities researchers to find information that we need to use and reuse that information in an easy way, so to say, for someone who is not very highly experienced with computational tools and so on. So that was our main purpose, was, so to say, to find out if we can ask our humanities research questions and dig into the material that is available on the user interface and on a interface that actually was created by our team. In order to do this, we have actually asked some specific questions. So we have used case studies where we tried to find out if we find those answers. And those case studies were mainly about migration, history, about gender questions, about war and revolts and, yeah, so to say, upheavals in history. And our fourth question was, of course, media history. So digging into journalism and questions that relate to all issues of media history. The time period of the material that we tried to cover with the material we had was between 1850 and more or less 1950, although there we already have a lot of copyright restrictions because in Europe, usually you can access material that is older than 100 years. In Austria, we have this special permission to have material that is older than 70 years. So basically we are for now restricted to this really, let's say, yeah, to past material, and we still have to find ways to work with younger material. What did we do in the project? We, as Digital Humanities Group, we did these things. So we made some, yeah, very academic approaches to the case studies, but also we tried to use our project results for general public. So that means we created a lot of material on our website that you can access, starting from blog posts to Twitter threads, to case study descriptions, to YouTube videos, on how to use the platform, and so on and so on. And we also showcase some of the case studies on the website. Last but not least, we created a whole set of education material for different kinds of use, for teachers, pupils, for lay historians, mostly for secondary school, but also for university teaching. Also here, I would like to invite you to just go to our homepage, which is actually very easily accessed. And I just realized now that we didn't put the link in there. It's newseye.eu. Yes. Then I give over to my colleague Sarah and ask Jimena to please open the next slide so that she can dig a little bit into what we were doing.
Yeah, as Eva already explained, we had like different use cases within the NewsEye project. I was mainly working on the use case migration, and we were working together with computer scientists and trying to figure out or to work out how to work with these digitized historical newspapers. And especially we were trying to find somehow of a digital history workflow. So how to actually work from finding newspaper clippings or specific newspapers actually to the end of interpreting them and disseminate them. So we were trying to figure out what works very well for users, but also for us, for humanities researchers, but actually all kind of different user groups that would use historical newspapers and how we can actually support those user groups. So we are talking about humanity researchers, but we are also just talking about students or other interested people, librarians, lay historians, and so on. And yeah, all different user groups have a different access to the material, of course, but we were trying to figure out what could be like a good workflow through these newspapers. So of course, like there needs to be like a good user interface, so it's good to start with a good interface. In the NewsEye project, we called it the demonstrator, which actually we developed as a showcase. We had like 1.5 million newspaper pages on the demonstrator, and I tried, as the name says, to demonstrate how actually this interface can work to figure out or to find newspaper clippings. So we are trying to actually implement functions for the searching, the finding, the organization of newspaper clippings, for the collecting, exploring, and exporting newspaper clippings. And then, of course, we were dealing also with external tools or labs, because there is actually this kind of point where the interface is not enough anymore, where you actually have collected all the newspaper clippings and maybe created an own collection, but then it comes to the analysis, and then it needs to be more individualized. People maybe want to have their own methods, their own tools, and that's actually where external tools step in. And yeah, we were looking into some of those tools. We will also present some of these tools here. And what was important for us is how can we import the data sets from the user interface there? How can we analyze them and visualize them? And just to make this a little bit more concrete on a specific example, please for the next slide. So this is just like showing the user interface, the demonstrator, some parts of it. We actually want to show here the more specific example. I also have the link here in case you actually want to have a look at it. So we were using, we were looking into a specific case. It's the refugee discourse in historical newspapers. And we're actually trying to find this way how we can start with, and how actually we could support the start and the search. That's why actually the first step for us was like finding good keywords, of course, to get to the refugee discourse. And there we also have a tool that is suggesting keywords. It's actually working with a digital method that's called word embedding, which is looking for semantically similar words. You can also choose the languages here and just find like words that are similar to the word you're looking for. If for example, you're looking for refugees, you might find related words on the migration topic, and just helps you to find words. We needed to explore the found articles, to have a look into them, to close read. So it was very important for us actually to have like this combination of having a distant look, but also a close look within the interface. And it was also very important to save the found articles and also to create compound articles, so to combine articles. If the article separation was not very well, we were also able to just like merge them together, to save them as we needed, then to organize them, and then also explore them within the platform. And of course, which is also very important, to export the collection. So in the platform, there is we have different export functions. We can export it as CSV, we can export it as JSON, also as text, plain text. And these were actually the most important steps for us to going through, also while looking at the refugee discourse. So first we were looking for good keywords, and then we were just collecting everything. We were saving it. We actually were merging articles that were not good enough, and then we exported this collection to further work on it. And now Eva is going to show you two external tools which work very well with also historic newspapers, and how she imported the collection. We exported actually from the demonstrator how she imported it and how she did some analysis there. Please, next slide.
Actually, this is one for you, Sarah. So maybe...
Actually, it's still mine. Yeah. But going over to the external tool, I already explained, this is the moment where we want to export now our collection and investigate, for example, word frequencies, collocations. We want to create bigram, word clouds, or train topic modelings, for example, or word embeddings, and so on. And this is the next step, and Eva will explain now two of the tools.
Okay, Jimena, please, the next slide. So if we were in a hands-on session, which unfortunately we cannot do at this stage, we would now introduce you to different programs, so to say, or tools that one could use, and or people using digital data are using. So in our case, we have been working with mainly Orange and Voyant. Orange is a data mining suite, as you can see here. It's free. It helps a lot with, if you're not very familiar with digital tools, it helps a lot because we'll look at this in a minute. It helps a lot to work through the different steps between our humanities questions, between material and computational parts. We've had the advantage that, or we will have the advantage that here at the University of Innsbruck, Orange is the data mining tool is going to be implemented or incorporated into Cyverse. That is a new platform. The platform is not new, but this co-working space, so to say, this digital co-working space is going to be opened for all researchers at the University of Innsbruck, and following our request, they will be implementing Orange there. So you have the advantage of having your data stored locally on our servers, and you don't always have to look for them in the cloud, which can be an advantage. But in our case, since we are working with copyrighted material, of course, it is important that we have this safe space. Next slide, please. So in Orange, what is important and what is easy for us to, why it is easy for us to use, is that Orange is already working with newspaper interfaces, so you can access mainly two newspapers, that's The Guardian and the New York Times, by applying for an API link from those newspapers, and then you would have the entire material there. But you can also just basically use all kinds of transcribed data here, your own corpus that you can upload and then use these digital methods. This here just to show you it's already adapting or just is adapting to a lot of computational linguistics use, which can also be adapted for people using newspaper material outside the interfaces. Next slide, please. So here just quickly to show you what is the result. If you have this API key, you can then go on to use the paper in this text format here. Thank you. Next slide, please. But we are going to work with something even, let's say, easier, without any knowledge of computational things. We are going to use, or I'll just show you briefly through Voyant how we did actually begin to work with the material that we were able to export from our platform, from the demonstrator. Voyant is a free tool. It is designed for use of your own material. The only handicap, so to say, is that it cannot host millions of pages, but you're okay as long as it's only thousands of pages or thousands of articles. Next slide, please. Then you would just have to upload your material here. I use JSON. You can make some distinguishing comments here to have the perfect data in there, but usually you get an error message. So if you use Voyant, just ignore the error messages and continue with your work because it is going to upload your data anyway. Next slide. And what do we get if we bring our data into Voyant? Usually we have all kinds of quantitative statistical material that comes out of it. The most used part probably is the word cloud that we see here in the left-hand corner. You can see the machine is basically just counting numbers, counting words in, so to say, in a bag of words, and it shows it here with different colors and sizes, so to make it visible what is the most important words that are being used. What are the most important words that are being used in this huge material bag of words that you have been introducing, that have been uploading here. Next slide, please. Of course, you can clean the data in Voyant, and here just to show on the left-hand side, I took out the most important words. Since my corpus was about refugees, I took out all the words related to refugees, because of course they will be in there since I looked for them in the first place. And then I tried to see, so what are the most important things that are words that are being used here. Of course, it is interesting to see. I mean, I don't know, yeah, it is an English-speaking newspaper. It's the Herald Tribune, so it is not too surprising, but still we have the most important words that come up here, pop up here. You can see on the right hand side is American, the Mr. and Mrs., which of course we probably would have to eliminate since it could be all kinds of names that come up here. But then we have work in Paris. That is a very good indication for me already where I would actually start looking into the material, digging deeper into this material and see where is the connection here between American work in Paris and why do these words pop up so often in the material that I have here. So I could basically, being a historian, I could jump right into this triangle of words that I find here. Next slide, please. One thing that I always like to use very much is this context tool that we find in Voyant, because I can basically focus on one word. In this case, it was refugees, and look in what context this word appeared. And you can see there is, of course, some indication that this is about, or the newspaper articles are about returning refugees, which is interesting because actually probably I was looking for refugees going away, but they are returning refugees. And we have some, I don't know, nationalities in there, Armenian, Belgian, Russian. So I can see, okay, the context this word here is being used is rather wide, but also I have some indication what I could look for in my corpus. Basically, I would probably use this returning idea, and also the nationalities that are being mentioned here. So context is one thing that I like very much. One more slide. But also here, as I said before, here the trends that are being selected for the words that I can choose, or for the words that are being used in the word cloud, I can see how discourses change, or how the discussion about specific words change. If we just for visualization purposes pick out the word Mrs., MRS, you could see there is actually quite some change over time, although it's always highly used. We of course would have to go back to the material and find out why is this word even so prominent here in this case. Last but not least, the next slide. We also have some georeference tool in here. So basically this is a visualization where you can see that shows you where the material is located, basically what the material is talking about, what named entities, place named entities are mentioned and how often they are mentioned. And also, I mean, this is like a visualization that moves over time. So you could basically see where this news travel from if we have the right parameters. So basically, how are these place names talked about in what time frame? And lastly, Jimena, one more. Of course, there are some experimental tools in here that work with topics. That is, the machine is then trying, so the tool here is trying to find out if I put together all the most used terms, which ones would indicate what kind of topics this is being talked about. And let's, I don't know, of course, not all topics make sense, especially not to the human eye, but we could, of course, find also some topics in here. For example, French Paris Day, war, wounded gift, a cold winter. So the second topic here could have something to do with a cold winter and in France and in Paris and so on. Or the fourth could have something to do, could be a specific, a smaller corpus within my whole collection talking about German related things and so on and so on. Topic modeling, of course, is very challenging. It depends on many things, and this is why usually these outside tools, these automated outside tools, at least that's what we found, are not enough for what we need them, because also we have a hard time understanding what happens. And at this point I give over to Sarah again, and she will just continue working on this topic issue and maybe show a couple of things that we did then with basic programming skills.
Yeah, next slide, please. So yes, I was actually using Jupyter notebooks and Python packages. So Jupyter notebook is nothing else than a coding environment, which is pretty easy to use. You have like this coding environment, like a page, you can use code, but also you can have columns where you just explain what you are doing. And yeah, so there's Python packages. So Python is a programming languages, and there are some specific packages that allow you to run digital methods actually quite easily. You just have to adapt them and kind of know how to read them, and of course also how to debug some mistakes that can happen, and of course also know how to import your collection into those Jupyter notebooks. But then you can actually use those packages. You can see here in these pictures. I use the Gansim package, which is a very typical package for topic modeling, or also the NLTK package, which is very helpful for creating diagrams, trigrams, just doing some word analysis. And with this package, you can import them into your notebooks, basically, or coding environment. A Jupyter notebook is just one example of it. You can use any coding environment. They're just very handy to use. And actually, if you share them, they can be reused by other people, which is very handy as well. So basically, I was importing a collection we created on the refugee discourse, as we were talking before. Here you can see on the right, you can see I had a collection between 1914 to 1920. So this is basically the wartime and the 2 years after the war. And here you can also see the amount of newspaper clippings that are in this collection. And yeah, we were also looking for refugees. We were, of course, finding newspaper clippings in the English-speaking newspaper we had in the demonstrator, which was the New York Herald. And so having this collection in my coding environment, I was trying just different digital methods on it, and actually also was able to find some interesting discourse markers, I will call them, just like hints that show me where I can find the interesting discourses and where I can investigate further on this topic. Next slide, please. So the first thing that I did was creating bigram word clouds. It's basically word clouds, but that show typical words that occur together frequently. It shows those words together. Just for example, the United States, you can read it now, United States, because they are basically, just shortened to unite them, kind of, to make it better readable. So they are stamped, you would say it like that. So just all these words, they actually appear next to each other. And this is also very interesting because you get a little bit more of the context of one word. And what I was trying is just like to create this bigram word clouds for different years. So I told you I had like time frame from 1914 to 1920. So first I was looking into the 1914 corpus I had, which was like one of the smaller ones. But you can actually see here, just from the bigrams, that it was actually, the discourse was mainly war related. So it's many words that are related, you can relate to the wartime, starting of the war, the soldiers, but then also the German cruiser, also a little bit costs we have here, but mainly, mainly war related. But then if we go to the 1917 discourse, so it's already like the year before the war ends, and the discourse on refugees changed a lot, as you can see here already. It mainly talks about donations, about help, about information, list of donations, appears. So it's just like very different than the discourse before. So basically here we have now a lot of discourses on how to help those peoples, while first the discourse mainly started about the war and the people had to leave. And this is actually very interesting and would lead me to have a closer look at those discourses and doing a lot of close reading afterwards. But going into topics, if I was already talking a little bit about topic modeling, next slide, please. I was using the Gensim library, which is actually the most used Python library for topic modeling, and which is of course very nice with this library, that you are free to do many things. Of course, you can change any parameter. You can decide how many topics you want to train. You can decide how big the corpus is you want to train on, and then there's other parameters you can just choose. You can choose between word count, but also the importance of words, which is still giving some further hints. So actually it's you can just like use all the parameters exactly as you need it, and actually as it is necessary for this specific collection. Because what is very difficult with topic modeling is that each collection is different, and each collection basically would need different parameters. And with ready-made programs, sometimes this is difficult because firstly, you need to understand what these parameters are about and how to choose them and what makes them different and so on. So using this package actually gives you a lot of freedom to rerun this tool as long as you feel like you get quite good topics and you actually can use them. And what is also very important, if you actually rerun the tool, that you actually get topics that are kind of stable. Topic modeling is stochastic, so it actually changes every time a little bit. Topic modeling will never give you like exact the same results when you redo it, but once you get like topics that are kind of stable, which do not change too much, this is a very good hint that you actually trained good models and that your parameters are working quite well. So this is just to show you like one of the topics I got, which was topic 3. I was training 10 of them in total. And this is basically more or less about like the help and information topic for refugees, a bit similar than we had before already in the word cloud also, but here you can see it's about aid, it's about beers, so it's basically just covering this kind of discourse on this helping and giving information, giving money. We also have the word money here for families, clothing, friends, including all kind of those words. The next slide, please. So this is a topic that I would actually interpret as attacks and fires leading to the flight of people. So here we have a quite different discourse than before. It's talking about fires, it's talking about attacks, it's talking about Germany, it's talking about American in the night having the attacks, the soldiers reports, also giving some places where those attacks and fires took place. So basically this discourse is very much about this very specific refugees that were fleeing because of attacks and fires. And you can also see here that not always like the most frequent words are the most important words. So sometimes that can vary a lot too. And the last topic I want to show you, the next slide, please, is the topic 5, which I would interpret as a discourse on the return of refugees to their country of origin. So of course we have like refugees fleeing, but we also have refugees returning, especially I mean, even during the war, but especially also after the war. So we have like the word return here as not the most frequent one, but as the most important word in this topic, and then followed by words that typically also come along with the return migration discourse. And next slide, please. Yeah, this was it about, and I would just say thank you for your interest. And we are looking forward to your questions, of course.
Almost, Sarah. Just give me 1 minute.
Oh, sure.
So coming back to our original intention, so to say, what was this all about? So why are we doing all this tricky analysis, also computational analysis with material? As we suggested, or as we actually came here to use and reuse digital historical newspaper corpora, we were trying to find ways for the public use of newspaper corpora and to improve access for everybody to use this material, because we have several bigger issues, so to say, with this material that we see online. One of that is that most of the times, not always, but most of the times, these collections are still very prone to errors due to very difficult material, that the difficult material we have. So that means we have OCR errors, that the text is not a text. It can be that the text is only a scramble of letters and numbers and something like that. Usually if you have a user coming to these collections, he will just basically start with using keywords and get some results. And we found out in our project in NewsEye that oftentimes the results are skewed, are wrong, are somehow misleading, which has to do with a lot of issues like the OCR error rate, and also with the problem that we do not have a proper article, so to say. So after doing all this this stuff with improving the quality of the material and also with computational methods trying to basically corner the material that we have in our demonstrator, we have been trying to show our colleagues from the computer science and from the library sciences what it is that we would actually need in order to be able to dig deeper into the material and also to give improvement, to give hints to everybody using the material there. So it's a two-sided project, so to say. On the one hand, trying to improve the quality of the material, on the other hand, trying to improve access or to give ideas on how to improve the user interfaces so that they are also, yeah, they also produce valuable and correct results for the general public. Yeah, and with that, I think we would stop at this point and ask for your questions and comments.
Thank you. Can I stop sharing the screen?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was really, really interesting. So now I open the floor for questions or comments. If somebody wants to just jump in and make a question. Actually, I have a question. I am not an expert in digital humanities, but for what you show us about Voyant and Orange, I know a little bit about Voyant, but not Orange, but it seems to me that there's a lot of work before actually putting the material in the software. Like the preparation of your corpus has to be done very carefully to obtain certain results. Eva, the things that you were mentioning before about misleading results or something like that would have to be with the way you prepare your corpus to upload. And is that the case? How is there a good way to prepare a corpus, or it just depends on the question you have?
It depends. Yes, it has to do with the quality of your material, the material that you upload. So the cleaner the material is, or the more effort you put into correcting text, into correcting headers and footers and dates and names and so on, the better results you will get. On the other hand, if you have a lot of material and you use expert tools like Orange or others, or the things that Sarah showed us, meaning like millions of pages, then the errors become less important. Still, you need systems that are able to process that amount of material. So when we use digital material, like historical digital material, in the end, you just have to say, well, I put this effort into making a nice corpus that gives me results that I need to be given. When we started in our project, for example, let me just tell you about one thing we had, and it was a study that Sarah actually did. We couldn't find any refugees in the material that we had, in the German-speaking material we had in the 30s and 40s, and we tried to find out what the problem was. And in the end, we found out that not even the word National Socialism could be found in the material, which was a good indication for us to say, well, there's something wrong with the material. It cannot be that in the 1930s we do not have National Socialism in German-speaking newspapers. So after doing a lot of work and putting a lot of effort into finding the mistake, the error, we found out that the material was so bad, the word recognition, the text recognition was so bad that there were actually no words to be found. After that, the material was improved through processing for our demonstrator and so on. And then, of course, we had these courses that we could find, that we were looking for, both migration related and also National Socialism related. But still, this means if you use the tools, you should really be aware of having to put quite a lot of time actually into preparing your data. So it always remains a question: how much effort are you prepared to put into your original data, or would you not rather just start with doing your manual labor before you go into these tools? We have also experimented with post-OCR correction, it's called. So basically to use the skewed material, the wrong material we have on the interfaces, and correcting them by computational algorithms. It's been quite good, but still for historical material, not good enough. So I would say we are not yet at the point where we can say just download from historical interfaces, upload to whatever kind of tool you have and get your perfect visualizations and results.
So also you work in German, or you work with other languages? I mean, then you have to do also translation. You have to translate things to other languages, and that also can be an issue, right?
That's actually a very big issue. That's a big issue. We have been trying to do multilingual topic modeling, for example. We've been trying to put our three national corpora together and find common topics by doing all kinds of computational things there, but that was very tricky. It was actually too tricky. We couldn't get really good results yet, which of course it would be interesting to say, hey, what are the overlapping issues here in these three languages, four languages that we had, that's French, German, and Finnish. The English so far is the best corpus, so to the best language that we have so far, because of course there's been a lot of effort put into English language, topic modeling and so on. What we had to go back to, so to say, is if we compared languages, we had to go back to named entities, meaning to places, to person names, to specific dates that we could investigate. Of course, it would have been nice if we could have been able to just tell the machine, tell the tool, well, give us the discourses that we have about World War I in these three languages. But we were not so successful yet with that. I mean, there is quite some interesting output, but not so good. It is not so good that we could say, well, just use it now.
We have a question from Biljana.
I just wanted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, sorry. Just wanted to ask, to add something, like for the preparation question you had, just that my own experience showed that the preparation of data takes longer time than the analysis of data. So normally it take longer, spend more time for preparation, which is actually a more important, like more complicated part, because you have to find some, if there's something wrong in the data, you have to figure out what it is, you have to find some bugs, some mistakes, and just to clean the data and everything, it just takes a long time.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I had that feeling, because sometimes we just see the results and we think that's just very straightforward, and it seems like there's a lot of work before that. So thank you. We have a question from Biljana Sumonovic. I hope I'm saying your name right. She's asking, is it possible to apply the tools mentioned if the newspapers are not in English or German, etc.? It's like,
yes, of course. The tools usually they don't care about the language. It's just, for them it's just a collection of numbers and letters and whatever. However, since you have to clean the data, or you should clean the data, meaning that you have to remove stop words like full stops or and the, and that in every language, you at least would need some kind of stop word list, which actually exists for very many languages. And you'd have to add that manually or just to import that to the tool, so that you have more or less clean data. But otherwise, there is no restriction language-wise.
thank you. Do we have more questions? I have another, well, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. You can interrupt me, the public, whenever you want. I'm thinking, because I am from South America, that we're having a lot of issues with immigration and those kinds of topics, that these kinds of tools and analysis that you make could be also be really useful to understand, like in a big picture, like flows and movements of people and stuff. It's not a question, it's something that I'm I'm thinking about, and that I was thinking like it could be like a in the future. I mean, like a good way to compare like trends in the world and movements and stuff, since we are having a crisis here at the United States at the border with all the asylum seekers that are coming from Latin America, that it's becoming like a real delicate and problematic issue. So yeah, I think this could be a tool that could give like more lights and comparisons. I think it's very interesting. I think it's very, if for someone like me that's a newcomer to the digital humanities scene, how would you advise to start with a program like Voyant, or there are more simpler tools?
Sarah, go ahead.
Okay. Of course, starting with the simpler tools, because there's one thing of applying those tools, and another thing is to understanding those tools, what they are doing, what the algorithm is doing. So the easier the algorithm you're using, and then the tool you're using, the better you can actually understand. So I would always recommend to start like with frequencies, understanding what does it mean if something is very frequent, the words are very frequent, appearing very frequent, or not very frequent. So this is actually quite easy to understand. And then when it comes like to more complicated statistical analysis, but yeah, I would always recommend to use tools that already exist. And like Eva showed, Voyeur is of course one of the tools which you can easily use and have like results immediately. This is very nice too. Like you can have results very fast, because it can be very frustrating if you need like a long time to just get some results, and this can just make you not liking it anymore or doing it anymore. So yeah, what would you say, Eva?
I think with current migration trends, it would be very interesting if we had the results from our study, so to say, where are the discourses in media? Basically, so what is media talking about, or where is the connection between society, media, and politics, and what is being transported on newspapers or on media sites? We found that we cannot extract discourses yet, because I think it would be very interesting to see how are migrants being portrayed, how they are being talked about. We have these issues also here in Europe, of course. So what influence do media have on the discourses? How does that change over time? I don't know any automatism or any machine that can do that yet. Also, we know that many of the migrant discourses that we have now are on social media, and we do not, at least that's my impression, we do not have any tools or methods yet that give us satisfactory answers on how to really trace those discourses. But of course, that would be something very important, not only for us to have as humanities researchers. It would also be something very interesting to see the impact of media discourses on migration movements. And there is one, I only know of one project in Germany, actually a German-Indian project. They are trying to find how newspaper or media discourses are really influencing migration movement from New Delhi to Great Britain. But that's just one that I know, and they are trying to analyze social media data, mostly from Facebook and mostly from Twitter. No results yet, but of course we don't have these tools yet, I think. So where do we start? We do what we did in the beginning. Yeah, we do frequencies. We create our own corpora. Selecting the data is tricky already. Then we do some frequencies, and then we do some manual work. So to say, what is this that's being talked about in this article, and so on and so on. But then we go back again to this one question. Yeah, how much effort can you actually really put into creating your own perfect corpus, right?
Is there Is there an example or a case study that you can tell us about? For example, if it had happened that you started with a question and then the results show you another thing that you had to like shift your questions?
Actually, we have, we have a couple we could, of course, share. But the keywords is one of the big issues still. We are using keywords. We always expect the perfect results from keywords, and most of the times keywords do not reflect, or you have multiple meanings in keywords. Yeah. So what you get can be something totally different. Like Sarah did a study on return migration, but that you could talk about this, Sarah. So she got all kinds of return, but not return migration, returning from the mountains, returning from a trip overseas, returning from something, but return migration. So you get results that have nothing to do with what you're looking for. And actually, Sarah could probably easily share some of her work.
Yeah, like this main problem with keywords, when you think that you get some kind of material with specific words, but then it's in the end it's pretty different what you find in the news, and there's words you haven't thought of, and then you will find them, or words that you have to combine somehow. You actually also, there's always some surprise when you're looking for, when you're trying to find specific topics like on migration, or especially like I did on return migration. And this is very difficult because, as Eva already said, I was trying to find newspaper clippings that were talking about those people who are returning from overseas countries or other countries to their country of origin, and there were just not very much keywords that were leading me to these topics, and many keywords that were leading me to very different return migration things. Return migration can be a lot. It can be bird return migration or animal return migration, but also the kids returning from the school, or even like the water returning to the sewers. So it can be just a lot, and this is also one of the main challenges to just deal with when you're working with keywords and doing full search within digital newspapers. But one thing that I also learned, that if there is something that actually does not fit at all with your expectation, there is a bug. There's something wrong. So every time when I feel like, oh, this is totally unexpected, I found something that is completely wrong, like completely different to my hypothesis that I had in the beginning after reading literature and everything else, it is mostly a bug. So it's not just like, oh, everything what we did so far is wrong, and now I found something completely different and new. So like, yeah, if there's something completely unexpected, it's always good to have a very close look at it.
Thank you. Any other questions do we have from the audience? Comments, queries? I actually have another one. I'm sorry. This topic is very, I mean, it's fascinating for me, but it's also I don't know very much about it. You mentioned at the beginning that you design tools for students, for high school students, for I guess teachers to use in the classroom. How has that been received? Have you had good feedback about those tools? Do students like them? If I could ask that.
We didn't design tools. We created educational material on how to use newspaper material and newspaper interfaces. We just published that in May this year, and actually we've had quite good download rates, especially from teachers that were trying to also to find digital material now during the Corona pandemic to work with their students. If they had to teach online, of course, that was a good opportunity for us. We had quite good download numbers. I don't know the actual numbers right now. but we know that it is being used. We had some feedback from one of our teachers here in Austria, and I know in France it has been used also. But I think it was a good opportunity right now to, yeah, since so many people were online and had to work online, also students and teachers had to work online. Of course, I think such educational guidelines can help you to really yeah, move quickly or move more quickly through the material, through the challenges, and have some, yeah, very practical help on how to use the material. And thank you, Sarah just shared the link to our education material in the link in the chat. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to add something.
No, well, I don't have any more questions on my end. I don't know if the audience has any more questions, or if Sarah and Eva, would you like to make some other comments, remarks, observations, something else to be aware of when using these digital tools, or any reflection?
I don't know, just maybe a closing remark. Public history, this is where we are, the surrounding. Of course, this is, I think, the big challenge. On the one hand, we found we underestimate the public, so to say, on how they use the newspaper corpora, the digital newspaper interfaces, because most of many users, let's say it like this, non-professional users are very expert in using the newspapers. But of course, they could need some help, or not help. They could use some of the tools that we are using to be faster with their work. On the other hand, we've also found, and we are working with the National Library of Austria right now, it is very difficult to combine the two fields, meaning to combine expert users with somebody who's just browsing historical newspapers. But I think this is actually what we need in the end if we continue working with digital newspaper collections, because you will always have a very interested public there, somebody looking for their family history, somebody looking for their town history, or whatever, just browsing newspapers from 100 years ago or something like that. But we had the feeling that it is important to also produce correct, not also, but to make sure that also the general public has correct results and gets some grip, or has some access to tools that are a little bit more sophisticated than just keyword searches. And that's actually, I think there needs something, we need to investigate more into this, into these different user groups. And I think that would be a big thing for public history then, to be able to show more from history in that sense. Yeah.
Thank you, Eva. Sarah, do you have any final remarks?
Yeah, I just maybe wanted to say that, I mean, newspapers are such a rich source. There are so many things that you can find in newspapers, historic newspapers too, and so many like different interests that people have that are looking for different things in newspapers. It's like us, people who want to know things about a specific topic like migration or nationalism, but it can be just like about a person, about a specific event, maybe also about some heritage questions. So it's such a rich source which becomes available, even like more and more available, and it's becoming better and better available. So it remains challenging, but there has been a lot of great things recently, and we hope it's continuing, of course.
I think it's continuing. I think I have seen a lot of at least some attempts to do projects like you do. I think your project is like very solid right now, but I think people are starting to think more about this digital humanities trend, which is, it's fascinating, but yeah, it's a lot of work of what I have seen. So I really tip my hat and admire you for doing all this, because I can't imagine it's easy nor quick. I think it takes a lot of time. So thank you. If there's no more questions or comments, I will just thank you on behalf of the International Federation for Public History for accepting this invitation. I enjoyed it very, very much. I think it's going to be a very nice, I mean, I'm sure the reproductions of the video are going to be a lot. That usually happens. And thank you. And I hope we can be in touch, and perhaps we can do another event in the future. So
glad to do that. Thank you all. Thank you for having us, and bye to everyone in that case then.
thank you. And thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Amanda. Right.
Amanda, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
It was a very productive session. I hope you enjoy it, and I will send you the video as soon as it's processed.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.